My son said a reverse mortgage would pay me back for everything I'd done. What it really did was pay him. By the time I saw the truth, my house was nearly gone, until I learned about one complaint that could freeze the lender and shine a light on what he'd done. It was late October when it started, the kind of cold evening where daylight slips away too fast and the rooms feel louder when they're empty. I came in with grocery bags cutting into my fingers, extra pasta, extra canned soup, because winters make me anxious now, and I hate asking anyone for help. I set the bags on the counter and looked around my little kitchen. I'd chosen those yellow curtains after my husband died, trying to make the place feel warm again. 35 years in this house, every corner painted or repaired by my own hands. It was the one thing in my life that still felt truly mine. My phone buzzed, from Daniel. "On my way, Mom. Got a big idea for you. Gonna fix everything. Fix everything," tightened my chest. Part of me felt touched that he was thinking about my problems at all. Another part of me felt small, like my life was something broken he could come rearrange. I pushed that feeling down. I've spent years telling myself not to be too sensitive. When he arrived, he kissed my cheek and dropped his laptop bag on the dining chair like he owned the place. "Wow, Mom," he said, peeking into the grocery bags. "Still buying name brand? You know you're on a fixed income now, right?" He said it like a joke, but it stung. I wanted to remind him I raised him on coupons and secondhand coats. Instead, I laughed softly, because smoothing things over is a habit I learned early. If I make it easy, no one gets annoyed. No one leaves. He opened his laptop. The screen's pale light washed over the old wood table. "Sit," he said. "I've been researching something for you. A reverse mortgage. It's perfect. It's like the house finally starts paying you back for everything you put into it." The words sounded like an advertisement. I'd seen reverse mortgage commercials aimed at people my age. Smiling seniors, easy promises, bright kitchens. I never liked them. They always felt like a trick dressed up as comfort. "What do you mean?" I asked, even as I felt myself shrinking. He put on that patient smile, the one he uses when he thinks I'm being slow. "You stay in the house. You don't have to move. You get money every month. You deserve that. You've done so much for me and Katie. Let the house take care of you now. You deserve that. Should have felt like love." Instead, it slid over me like something cold. Underneath it, I heard, "You can't take care of yourself anymore." It hurt that he had decided that for me. He pulled his chair close and turned the screen so I could see boxes and numbers. "Don't worry about the details," he said. "I'll handle the paperwork. This stuff stresses you out. I'll make sure it's done right." "Don't worry, I'll handle it." The phrases scraped at something raw. I've handled my own life since I was 17, yet there I was, nodding like a child. I hated that part of me felt grateful just because my son was paying attention to me. "So I'd still live here?" I asked. "Of course," he said quickly. "Forever if you want. The bank just taps the equity. It's no big deal. Honestly, it's kind of dumb not to do it." Kind of dumb. That one hit hard. It wrapped around all the years I'd been careful, protecting this house, paying on time, refusing to gamble, and turned my caution into a flaw. I felt embarrassed for hesitating. He clicked through screens, talking faster. "I already talked to a guy. He sent preliminary documents. We can get the ball rolling. I'll coordinate with them. You just sign where I highlight." Easy. He'd already started. That hurt in a quiet, deep way. Decisions about my home made without me. Conversations I wasn't invited into. I sat there while he planned around me like I was furniture that needed moving. "Daniel," I said softly, "are you sure this is safe?" He sighed, small, sharp impatience. "Mom, please, I run a business. I deal with contracts all the time. You've always said you trust me. Trust me on this. I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you," felt like a weight. My husband's voice came back to me from years ago. Never put the house at risk, no matter what. That night, I didn't sign anything yet. I just nodded while Daniel explained, my heart pushing warnings up under my ribs. When he packed up, he kissed my forehead and said, "You'll thank me, Mom." After he left, his words echoed through the quiet rooms. I stood in the doorway watching his taillights fade, and for the first time in a long time, my home didn't feel entirely mine. I didn't know it then, but the ground under my feet had already started to shift. I washed the dishes slowly, listening to the water run, trying to calm myself the way I always have. By working, by tidying, by pretending feelings can be folded away like towels. But the uneasiness stayed. It wasn't fear of banks or forms. It was the feeling of being gently moved off center in my own life. I told myself I was lucky he cared. I told myself this was what good mothers did, trusted, supported, stayed grateful. Still, when I turned off the kitchen light, I looked back at the table where his laptop had been and thought, with a sudden sting, this house has never belonged to anyone but me. So why did it feel like I'd just been asked to ask permission? The first time I knew something was truly wrong was when I realized the money wasn't coming to me at all. A few weeks after that night, Daniel returned with a neat folder of papers. He set it down in front of me and squared the stack like he was presenting a gift. His voice went slow and gentle, the tone people use when they think you can't keep up. "Everything's set, Mom," he said. "All you have to do is sign where I marked. This is going to give you peace of mind. All you have to do made me feel like a formality, not an owner." Yellow, sticky notes waited on each page. My name was printed there, but it felt oddly distant, like it belonged to someone else. I wanted to read every line. He kept leaning in, pointing, guiding. "It's standard," he said. "I already went through it with the loan officer. Trust me, trust me." I'd trusted him since kindergarten, since the first time I held his hand at a crosswalk. Hearing it now, tied to my house and contracts, I didn't fully understand. Twisted something in my chest, I signed anyway. Each signature felt like I was scraping my own name off the walls. After that, I waited for the monthly money he'd promised. "You'll finally breathe," he'd said. "You can buy yourself things without guilt." On nights when I lay awake counting bills in my head, I held onto those words like a railing. Then the first funds arrived, and I only learned about it by accident. Daniel was at my table, smiling at his phone. "Good timing," he said. "The first transfer came through. This is going to help a lot with the business." "The business?" My voice came out thin. He didn't even look up. "Yeah, Mom, it's cleaner if it goes through my account. Easier for taxes. Don't worry, I'll make sure you're covered every month. Cleaner." The word hit like cold water. My home, my signature, my risk. And the money was cleaner if it skipped me and went straight to him. Resentment rose hot in my chest. Every "don't worry" felt like a hand covering my mouth. I thought about all the times I'd already helped his business. Cashing out a small retirement account so he could cover a lease. Canceling a trip to visit an old friend because he needed a short-term loan. Standing in a hardware store years ago choosing cheaper paint so I could send him a check when he was starting out. I never called those sacrifices. I called them love. Now they lined up in my mind like receipts, and it hurt. Months passed. No steady deposits showed up in my account. Each time I asked, Daniel had an answer ready. "I'm reinvesting for you, Mom," he said once. "This puts us both in a stronger position. Us." The word used to mean family. Now it sounded like he was standing on my shoulders and I was supposed to thank him for the view. Then a plain white envelope arrived from the lender. I opened it at the counter, expecting another statement. Instead, my eyes locked on a sentence that made my hands shake. "Notice of delinquent taxes and insurance. Failure to resolve may result in foreclosure proceedings." For a moment, the kitchen went still. Even the clock seemed to pause. Delinquent taxes. Insurance not paid. I thought those were included. I thought Daniel had handled them. He told me, "It's built in, that's the point." Simple. Simple felt like a slap now. I called him right away. His office noise buzzed in the background. "Hey, Mom, can we talk later?" "I'm in the middle of something." "I got a notice," I said. "It says taxes and insurance haven't been paid. It says foreclosure." He sighed. "Don't freak out. These companies send dramatic letters all the time. It's a standard warning. I'll look into it." Standard. This was the house where I'd sewn his Halloween costumes at this very table, where I'd slept on the living room floor beside him when he had a fever. Every memory I'd built inside these walls, and he called it standard. "I thought you said it was included," I whispered. "It's complicated, Mom," he said, impatience edging in. "You don't need to get worked up. Just send me the letter." "I'll handle it. Send me the letter." I felt like a secretary, not a homeowner. The resentment wasn't a knot anymore. It spread heavy and hot through my chest. I didn't shout. I didn't cry into the phone. I just said, "All right," and hung up. Then I laid the notice on the table and smoothed it flat with my palm. The paper was thin, but the threat inside it was heavy, and the silence in the house wasn't peaceful anymore. It was the kind of silence that comes after something is said that can't be taken back. For days, I tried to act normal. I tucked the letter into a drawer like hiding it could change what it said. I made coffee, folded laundry, watered my plants, but every time I passed that drawer, my chest tightened. It felt like the house was holding its breath. When I finally asked Daniel to come over, he walked in smiling and said, "Any more scary mail?" Like my fear was a childish habit. When I asked to see the full paperwork, everything I'd signed, his eyes flicked away for half a second before he smoothed his face again. "It's a lot of legal stuff," he said. "You'll just stress yourself out. I've got digital copies. I'll send you what you need." Like I didn't have the right to the whole truth. That tiny pause in his eyes stayed with me long after he left. It was the first crack that made me stop wondering if I was imagining things and start believing my own instincts. That night, I didn't wait for Daniel to send what I needed. I sat at my kitchen table and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I asked for help without going through him. I went online, typed the lender's name and the words from the notice, and ended up on a government housing site with a number for a counseling agency. The next morning I called. A woman named Karen answered. Her voice was steady and kind in a way that didn't feel like a performance. "Tell me what's going on," she said. I started with the letter about taxes and insurance. Then I told her Daniel handled everything, that the money was going into his account, that I was told to sign where he marked. Karen paused. "Ma'am, before any reverse mortgage closes, the borrower is supposed to meet with an independent housing counselor approved by HUD. Did you ever have a counseling session like that? A call? A meeting? Anything where someone separate explained the risks and your options?" My mouth went dry. "No," I said. "No one like that talked to me. I met a notary who brought papers. My son said he handled everything with the loan officer." "Then that's a problem," she said gently. "That counseling is there to protect you. You should have had someone completely independent explain the loan, make sure you understood it, and answer your questions, protect you." The words hit hard. I'd always believed protection meant locks and alarms, a stove turned off twice, bills paid on time. I didn't know there were rules meant to protect people like me from signing things we didn't understand, rules my own son had sidestepped like they were obstacles. Karen asked careful questions. Who was on the loan? Where did the funds go? Did I receive statements? Then she asked, "Are you married?" Sometimes there are protections for a non-borrowing spouse. For a second I could see my husband again at the table, pen tapping as he sorted bills. He used to say, "We don't gamble with this house. This is our anchor." After he died, Daniel told me, "Dad would want you comfortable. This is what he'd want." Hearing Karen talk about protections, about a system that understood how much a home matters, made that memory feel sharp and unfair. My husband tried to protect this place, and the person we both loved most had found a way to turn it into a cash line. "I paid for everything," I whispered before I meant to say it out loud. "The roof, the furnace, his college books. I took extra shifts when he was little to keep this house. And now I might lose it, and I don't even know what I signed." Karen didn't rush me. "You still have options," she said. "First, we need the full documents, the note, deed of trust, closing statement. You have a right to those. We'll go through them together. We'll also check your tax and insurance records, and if something wasn't handled properly, we can help you file a complaint." After we hung up, fear was still there, but underneath it I felt a thin line of strength, the same feeling I had as a young woman when I made hard choices with shaking hands and didn't apologize for them afterward. I texted Daniel. "I need copies of every document from the reverse mortgage, all of them. I'm reviewing everything with a counselor." He answered fast, "Mom, that's overkill. You're overreacting. You're going to make this more complicated than it needs to be." Overreacting burned. It turned my real fear into a tantrum. For a moment I imagined calling him and yelling, demanding answers. I pictured every hurtful sentence I'd swallowed over the years, finally pouring out. But I chose calm, not for him, for me. I typed back, I'm not asking, I'm telling you what I'm doing. Hitting send felt like stepping out of a cage I didn't know I was in. I didn't wait after that. I pulled every paper I already had from my file cabinet, the few pages left with me, the tax notices, the lender's letter. I spread them across the table and began comparing dates and amounts. I wrote questions in my notebook. Why no counseling? Where did the funds actually go? Who signed what? Later that night, I looked at Daniel's social media. I'd never paid much attention before. This time, a recent post caught my eye. A photo of him outside his office, smiling, captioned, "Grateful for the extra capital that let us expand this year." Sometimes you just have to use what you've got. Use what you've got. I stared at those words for a long time. I knew exactly what he had used. The equity in the house where I'd rocked him to sleep, where I'd comforted him after his first heartbreak, where I cooked his favorite meals when he was broke and tired. In that moment, the guilt I'd carried for questioning him started to fall away. The picture of myself as a helpless older woman didn't fit anymore. I was the one who built this home. I was the one who had something valuable that others had leaned on for years. I still loved my son. That didn't vanish. But I stepped back from the role of the grateful, quiet mother who says yes to keep the peace. I could see a different version of myself, someone who asks hard questions, who says no, who protects what she has left. As I gathered my papers into a neat stack for my meeting with Karen, a calm settled over me. It wasn't the easy comfort Daniel promised. It was the calm that comes when you finally stop pretending everything is fine. The house was quiet around me, just the hum of the refrigerator, the soft scrape of paper, the faint smell of coffee gone cold. For the first time, that quiet didn't feel lonely. It felt focused. The day I sat down across from Karen in her small office, I wasn't the same woman who once signed papers without reading them. I brought a folder thick with documents, notes on sticky tabs, and a quiet anger that kept me steady. Karen spread everything across her desk and went page by page, tracing lines with her finger, translating legal language into plain English. When she reached one form, she stopped. "This is a certification that says you completed independent housing counseling before the loan closed," she said. "It has your name on it. Do you remember talking to anyone besides the loan officer and your son?" I leaned forward. My name was typed neatly at the top. Below it was a signature that looked like mine. My stomach turned. No one had counseled me. No one had explained risks and options. Daniel had told me, "We already did all that, Mom. It's handled." Seeing that form felt like someone wrote a false story about me and used it to take my rights away. Every time Daniel said, "Just sign, it's standard," came rushing back, and suddenly I understood what standard could hide. "So this says I talked to someone I never met," I said slowly. Karen nodded. "Yes, that isn't how this is supposed to work. You have the right to understand your loan. If counseling didn't happen, we can file a complaint with HUD for misrepresentation. We can also contact the lender's compliance department and demand a review." Misrepresentation was a careful word, polite on the surface. But I knew what it pointed to. Daniel had pushed me into something I didn't understand, and someone had been willing to check the box anyway. Karen helped me write a statement. Dates, phone calls, what I was told, what never happened. I described how the funds went to Daniel's business account, not mine, even though I was the borrower. I attached the tax and insurance notice. With each sentence, I felt myself getting firmer, as if I was stepping back into my own body. When we finished, she said, "We'll submit this to HUD and to the lender. Now it's on record." On record soothed something in me. So much of my life, every sacrifice, every mom will handle it, had never been written down. Now at least, the wrong was. On my way home, I stopped at a lawyer Karen recommended. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old carpet. I sat with my folder on my lap, hands folded, feeling older than my years and steadier than I'd been in months. The attorney, a woman about Daniel's age, listened closely and asked precise questions. Then she said, "Do you have any powers of attorney with your son's name on them? Financial? Medical?" I did. After my husband died, Daniel said, "Mom, it's practical. If anything happens, I can sign for you. I'll protect you." Back then it sounded loving. Now it sounded like a door left unlocked. "Yes," I said. "We should revoke them." she said gently. We can draft new ones with someone you trust, or leave them unassigned for now. You're allowed to change your mind. This is your life. We signed papers that removed his authority. I updated my will so nothing could flow through him by default. I didn't call him. I didn't warn him. I simply did it. A week later, the lender called. A man from their legal department spoke in a careful, practiced voice. Mrs. Walker, we've received a complaint regarding your reverse mortgage. We are temporarily suspending foreclosure activity while we review your file and the counseling documentation. Temporarily suspending foreclosure wasn't a happy ending, but it let me breathe. I wrote down every word. My house wasn't safe forever yet, but it wasn't about to be taken out from under me. Daniel found out before I told him. He called that evening, voice tight. "Mom, what did you do?" he demanded. The lender froze everything. They said you filed a complaint. Do you know what kind of trouble you're stirring up? What did you do? As if the real problem was my refusal to stay quiet. I felt resentment rise, familiar, but it didn't shake me anymore. I went to a housing counselor, I said. I learned what should have happened and what didn't. I told the truth, that's all. He exhaled hard. This makes things harder, for all of us. You're risking the house, my business, everything we've built. Why didn't you talk to me first? Everything we've built. I heard the we and knew he meant himself. I did talk to you, I said quietly. You told me to relax. You told me not to worry about the details. I'm done doing that. He tried again, softer now, accusing. You're destroying the comfort we finally had. We just wanted to make it easier for you. For the first time, I didn't argue. I didn't plead for him to understand. I said the truth and let it sit. I have a lawyer, I told him. I'm not discussing details over the phone. The silence on the line felt like shock. Then came the texts, long emotional messages about family and trust, and why are you doing this to us? I read them, set my phone face down, and opened my notebook instead. Dates, calls, promises, threats. I stopped chasing his approval and started protecting my life. On the surface, I stayed calm. Underneath, I was done pretending. That night, I sat at my table again, the same table where I'd once signed without reading. The papers were spread out like a map, my handwriting in the margins like a voice I'd been missing. I wasn't looking for revenge, I was looking for safety, and I was finally acting like I deserved it. By the time the lender finished their review, I'd stopped hoping my son would admit anything on his own. I was at my dining table, papers spread out, when my attorney called with the results. Her voice was steady. Mary, HUD reviewed your complaint. The lender has acknowledged there is no record of proper counseling and that funds were directed to an account that isn't yours. They're taking this seriously. Here's where we are. Either the loan is brought current and repaid by your son, or the case can be referred to a fraud investigation. They're willing to hold off on foreclosure while repayment is resolved. Hearing repay the loan and fraud investigation out loud made me feel two things at once. Relief, because someone finally saw what I'd been trying to explain, and grief, because it took strangers and official letters to make my own son's choices matter. A few days later, we sat in a conference room at my attorney's office. Daniel was across from me, his wife beside him, both of them tight-faced like I'd dragged them into an inconvenience. My lawyer spoke calmly. The lender will suspend foreclosure if the balance is repaid within a set period. If it isn't, they can proceed with foreclosure and a fraud referral. They are prepared to document the lack of counseling and the way the funds were handled. Daniel leaned back. This is blown way out of proportion, he said. It was a paperwork mix-up. Mom knew we were using the money for the business. We're family. We were going to take care of her. Paperwork mix-up, my house, my name on a loan, a foreclosure threat. And he reduced it to a mix-up. My attorney slid an agreement toward him. You will repay the reverse mortgage balance in full within 12 months, she said. If you fail, the lender is free to proceed, and the investigation continues. Also, your mother's home will be placed into a trust that you will have no control over. His wife leaned forward, voice sweet and sharp. Is all this really necessary? She asked me. We thought it would be easier if Daniel handled everything. You know how confusing this is for you. Do you really want to put a stain on your own family? Confusing. Stain. She made my age the problem and my questions the offense. The resentment in me wasn't loud anymore. It was steady, like a line drawn in ink. I didn't create this situation, I said calmly. I signed papers without the counseling I was supposed to have. The money went somewhere I never saw. I'm not pretending that's fine. Daniel's eyes tightened. You're cutting me out, he said. After everything I've tried to build for us, you're throwing me away over a technicality. Technicality. He still couldn't say my home, my safety, my trust. He could only say his access. I signed the trust documents first. The house was placed under my name with an independent trustee. Daniel's name, once assumed, always present, was nowhere. Watching him realize that hurt, because I remembered the boy he used to be. But the satisfaction was quiet and clean. This wasn't punishment. It was protection. He signed the repayment agreement with a stiff hand. You're making a huge mistake, Mom, he muttered. One day you'll regret not trusting your own son. The words cut because they twisted self-protection into betrayal. I felt sadness under my anger. I understood then that he might never admit what he'd done. Weeks later, Karen emailed me. HUD confirmed foreclosure was suspended during repayment. She also wrote that my complaint helped them flag problems and how the lender handled counseling with other older borrowers. At the end, she added, "Thank you for speaking up. You probably helped people you'll never meet." That line warmed something in me that had been numb for months. For so long, I'd been told I was overreacting. Here was someone saying my voice mattered beyond my own kitchen. The pressure from my family didn't stop. Daniel sent long messages about how hard repayment was, how much stress I'd caused him, how people were asking questions. His wife said, "You got your way, but you divided this family." Every word blamed me for a division that began the moment my trust was used without respect. The sting still came, but it no longer controlled me. I answered briefly, if at all. I didn't explain the trust. I didn't argue about the investigation. I let their messages sit while I chose what to do with my day. One evening, I turned my phone off and put it in a drawer. I made tea and sat in my living room. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel like it was holding its breath anymore. It felt steady. I was still a mother. I still loved my son, but I stopped sacrificing my safety to protect his comfort. I said no, and the world didn't end. And if any part of my story sounds familiar, hear this from me. You don't have to earn love by risking everything you have, and you don't have to stay quiet to keep the peace. Sometimes saying enough isn't cruelty. It's the first real kindness you show yourself. The next morning, I swept my porch, paid my bills, and walked through each room like I was taking inventory of my life. What was mine, what I'd built, what I refused to hand over again. The fear still visited, but it no longer ran the house. I did.